So this is not really a teaching, this is me chatting away about, it's teachings in it. I suppose I can't help but be teachings in it. There'll be advice in it. So we'll do a prayer. We'll do the prayer, a refuge in bodhicitta. So the refuge is reminding ourselves of our reliance on the Buddha. And then the second two lines of this prayer are reiterating our reliance. No, sorry, they're reiterating our motivation for doing this, is bodhicitta motivation, which is exactly what drives all these amazing holy beings like Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, whom we're praising today. The quality of bodhicitta was what defines them. We try to replicate that. So we just sing that little prayer. Sangye charan, soke chognam la, jangsho baru dagni kyap suchi, dagi chonyen gipe sonan ki, drola penchir sangye drupasho. Sangye charan, soke chognam la, jangsho baru dagni kyap suchi, dagi chonyen gipe sonan ki, drola penchir sangye drupasho. Sangye charan, soke chognam la, jangsho baru dagni kyap suchi, dagi chonyen gipe sonan ki, drola penchir sangye drupasho. Well, everything that I say and everything that I, whatever I learned so far has come. I started with Lama Yeshe, there's no question. When I first met him and Lama Zopa together, but Lama Yeshe was the one who kind of hooked my mind. And so if we want to look at the qualities he has all the qualities of any holy being. As Geshe Tekchok, when he talked about Lama after Lama passed away, he said, I cannot, say he is a realized being, but he did the activities of all the holy beings, And so the quality of Lama that I find even now, and I've had the privilege of having to edit some of his teachings to make them available to us in the West in English, the quality that I never failed to be amazed by was his ability to talk like us. I mean, and that's all the more shocking in a way, surprising, when you really do understand that the Tibetans, they were locked up in the Himalayas since they created their own language back in the 8th century, especially for the Dharma, and that had never changed. So when the Lamas talk, they talk as if it was 8th century, 10th century, 14th century, It's not just the words, but the constructs, the framework, the reference points. And that's something that when I first heard Lama Zopa's teachings, he talked like that, and I had no idea what he was talking about. I understood the English, but Lama Yeshe would come along in the evening, and he talked like us. He talked in the most psychological way. Somehow he got the essence of all this incredible body of knowledge has been around for 2,000, 3,000 years, coming back from these genius Indians, as His Holiness says. They were the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self, and Buddha came out of that incredible tradition. Then Lama had this ability to completely touch our hearts, because when we understand Buddhism, it is about the mind, and that's Lama's expertise. And I always joked that he was really a hippie, but he pretended to be a Tibetan, because he talked. It's astonishing to me that, when you look at his words, for example, I always say this, there's one word we all know in Buddhism. You hear the word affliction. It's the word they use that's coming from the Tibetan and the Sanskrit that refers to all the neurotic states of mind, attachment, anger, jealousy, all these. That's the term they use. Well, Lama never used it. He just somehow knew it was an arcane word. I don't know how he knew. He made up his own words. I mean, he had so many ideas in his incredible effort to convey to us, about our own human mind. He was astonishing in this way. And he still stands out, in that way. He's utterly remarkable. So I know for me, my first teachings were 1 month intensive Lam Rim with Lama Zopa, and then the evenings were Lama Yeshe. And I'm sure, I don't think I would have had the ability to really stay around if it hadn't been for Lama Yeshe, if it hadn't been for Lama sort of touching right at the heart of all the teachings. And that's constantly what he did. He was a scholar, he was a yogi, there's no question. And the other quality of Lama that really is amazing, he was unbelievably humble and unassuming. He was really like a real genuine yogi. He didn't care, he could not care about what people thought of him. He didn't show any aspect of being a high Lama, in neat robes and looking beautiful. He would wear these rough, funny robes, all funny colors. It was almost like he wanted to look like like an old hippie. There was no arrogance about him, no kind of. But what was amazing too, because I mean, when we first met these teachers, and when I first met them, I didn't know what it meant, a Lama. I had no concept, no reference point for it. You know, we don't have I mean, we talk about mentors, but to have this level of a mentor whom you learn to see as a living Buddha, there's nothing like that for us. So I had no idea how to be respectful, even how to behave nicely. But so for us, it was so incredible. There was Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who was considered a Lama. He had this term Rinpoche. He was recognized as a little boy. He was formally recognized as a reincarnated holy being. He looked the part. He had this impeccable behavior. But the interesting point was Lama was this high being, but Lama looked like an old hippie. So because Lama was so open and easygoing, that sort of gave us permission to be easygoing and open back with him, which means to be treating him casually, which is nothing wrong. But if we, you know, but with Lama Zopa, there he is, this holy person. And the way he behaved in front of Lama showed us Lama's qualities. When you saw this person who was called a Lama, Lama Zopa, who was recognized formally as a Lama, Lama Zopa, I mean, she wasn't, even though Lama was recognized as a little boy, as the reincarnation of a previous abbess. But, you know, these patriarchal Tibetans being the way they were then, Lama wasn't formally recognized because she was a female, you know, this previous reincarnation. So he was a holy being from the beginning. But he acted so normally. But the Lama Zopa, his way of behaving in relation to Lama, it showed us Lama's qualities. I mean, we wouldn't have known otherwise. He just looked like a boy, you know, like a young boy. No artifice, no airs. But that was so amazing, having Lama Zopa as his disciple, showing us how to behave, you know, and then showing us by his own behavior the qualities that Lama Yeshe had, because we can't see, we're not clairvoyant, you know. So somehow Lama Yeshe, I think his, like Geshe Tektok said, his qualities were, all his activities were the activities of all the holy beings, you know. And he was just, Tibetans are very traditional and very patriarchal. But Lama just had his own style. He could see immediately, you know, that we in the West, the women kind of felt lower and would, especially when the monks sit in front of the nuns and so on and so forth, being very Indian. So Lama was so kind to us all, you know. He appointed women in the top jobs. His main secretary, when he was in, you know, was this young nun, Yeshe Kado, who looked this cute 22-year-old, and he would take her down to the monasteries with him. I mean, risking his reputation totally, having a cute nun to be his attendant. He didn't care what people thought. He was so kind of, he saw the qualities in people, and regardless of the system, he would respect, you know. He appointed women in his top jobs in the centers. He was very extraordinary in that way. I remember when His Holiness was invited, when Lama Yeshe was one of the many heads of centers in Europe in 82, like 2 years before he passed away, who invited His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And Lama was amazing. He appointed 10 people to be security guards for His Holiness, and 5 of them are men and 5 are women. This was totally unusual. And somehow I won the lottery, and I was one of them. You know, I could not believe it. I felt I'd won the lottery. I couldn't believe it. But he made us wear lay clothes. And again, it's like risking his reputation. We wore these the men wore grey slacks, white shirts, maroon ties, and navy blue jackets, you know, and we women had to wear these cute little green plaid skirts with maroon jackets and yellow blouses, you know. I went to Milan, my friend in Milan took me shopping, and I bought these knee-high maroon boots, and then I thought I better look like a lady, so I wore lipstick, right? And I had hair, and Lama used to laugh at me and say, "I think I like you better like that." You understand? So he just had this way of joining the current, joining the world in which he lived. And that, of course, is the quality of a bodhisattva. They're adaptable. They're totally adaptable, you know. Lama adapted to the modern way. And it just pleased people so much, and you felt kind of included. I mean, many people who are very traditional teachers who didn't speak English, for example, always felt they were kind of not respected or whatever, especially women. Not Lama, not with Lama. He was remarkable in that way, quite remarkable. You felt included. You felt like he saw you, you know. I mean, even the robes we wore, if you noticed, I don't know if you noticed, when His Holiness, he always has this, and Lama Zopa, they have these yellow, you know, this shirt here that's called a donka. And his, in this section is yellow normally. And it's only for a particular monastery, our monastery, Serajay, and it's only for Rinpoches and top Geshes. Well, Lama Yeshe, he wore them, and he made us all wear them as well. So that was shocking for Tibetans, to see these wretched women, you know, looking like a bunch of monks. How dare you, you know? He did that. He was extraordinary. He didn't care what people thought. Many people criticize him. The Tibetans criticize him because he wasn't a Rinpoche formally. He didn't finish his Geshe degree. But Lama didn't care. They thought he was just kind of jumping on Westerners for their money, You know, he didn't care what people thought. He was really, in that sense, he was genuinely a yogi. And again, Lama Zopa would always praise his qualities, both as a scholar and a yogi, highly realized being. We can't tell. He looked like a boy, you know. So this is so moving for us in the modern world. So especially coming with this very traditional, virtually medieval system, not criticizing it, you know. He was so kind in that way. Lama's qualities, he was extraordinary. And somehow he learned English. Both of them learned English from the day they started meeting their even before that, I think, meeting their first Western students, you know. And Lama, having no pride whatsoever, he didn't care how his English sounded, but he didn't have a proper construct of grammar, but his words, he had the ability to, the way he put his sentences together. I can't describe it. He was utterly unique, you know, and still these days you can't compare his ability to convey the Dharma in this modern psychological way that really touched our hearts and made us feel, which is the Buddha's point, that we all got this potential, you know. Lama was amazing in that way. Still stands out as unique, I think, truly. So we can, and the other thing is too that there are about 150 or something centers under under Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa these days. And in the beginning there were several. And I remember one Kagyu Lama saying to me that he really praised Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe for their courage. Because normally what happens, most lamas, the tradition in Tibet is a lama has his own monastery. Then he might start a branch monastery and then another branch. And his students are the ones he appoints to take care. And that's normally how it is. But Lama could see that Westerners, or us Westerners, as well as other people, but in the beginning Westerners wanted the Dharma. And he couldn't travel to all the centers. So he started inviting his own fellow geshes, fellow students of his lamas to come, even not to come and be resident teachers at his centers. So that can be problematic because the style of Tibetan lamas, they have their own way of doing things. They gather their own students, but Lama realized, and that could be a problem. And there was often disharmony and even a schism. You know, back in the late 70s, early 80s, Geshe Kosang Gyatso, one of my lamas anyway, he took Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa center. And that's always a danger, you know, that's a problem of disharmony. But Lama could see he wanted his students to have the Dharma. So he took this risk. It wasn't about his ego at all, you know. And this Kagyu Lama praised Lama for his courage. He said that. Because it's risky, you know, because they have their own styles. I mean, he was so kind in that way. And he really was at the forefront, you know, of bringing the Dharma to the modern world. There's no question. I mean, you can tell stories, but when you tell a story, it's just about yourself, and that's boring, you know. But to talk about Lama's qualities, I think they're the essential ones, you know. And of course, he was very charismatic. I mean, you can be a brilliant yogi and still be kind of totally boring when you talk, you know, and you make people go to sleep. No, Lama was also charismatic, which helps, which gets you all excited, you know. He was incredibly charismatic. And also, women particularly loved Lama. It was very funny watching this. I remember one time, and Lama also, he didn't care how he looked. He was incredible. One time in Hong Kong, I remember I was there, and someone had given him this outrageously beautiful, magnificent, what's those Japanese, kimono. I mean, like a royal one. And Lama came down for breakfast with his royal kimono on, his baseball hat, and his sunnies, you know, his sunglasses. And I remember, and women just were captivated by Lama. He'd stop him in the street and talk to him. And he was just, somehow women just adored Lama, you know. And he joked to us, you think I'm female, he said, you know, he joked about that. Because we always thought him as Tara, of course. You people think I'm female, he said. There's no F sound in Tibetan, you see. So he had just these qualities. And he was funny. He was hilariously funny. I mean, he was hilariously funny. But intense. He scared the life out of me. You know? I have to be very careful. So I don't know what to say. That's a few words to say about Lama, okay? That's all I want to say. What can I say? Unless you ask me some questions. Maybe it's good to talk about why we need one of them. Recently, talking to a person, she said, root guru, what's that? Do I need one? She said. These phrases they have. So I said, well, if you're going to learn music seriously, what's your first step? Well, I'd watch a video. I said, then what, you know? Then you'd find a teacher. Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? So but we tend to think if we hear the word guru, we think, oh, that sounds kind of different. It's a religion, right? But actually, you know, my mother taught me, okay, Lama Yeshe said, this is the necessity for a person who's labeled a guru. I heard the word means heavy with qualities, you know. And I remember Lama said, Buddha is dead. So the only times the Four Noble Truths will be real for you is when you hear it, and these are my words, hear it from the mouth of a person in front of you. That's the guru, you know. It's so obvious. It's not some kind, when they talk about the guru as the most powerful thing, it's not some kind of religious idea. My mother was a musician, okay? Well, Bach is dead. Mozart is dead. What can I do? Just hope he's alive still somewhere? No, I relied upon my teacher. My mother taught me Bach. Now, where'd she get that from? Her teacher. Where'd he get it from? His teacher. And you track that back in a living lineage of genuine music people back to Bach. That's what it's called, an oral lineage. It's exactly the same in any body of knowledge that you like. Cooking, anything, you track it back through the people you learn it from. That's the role of a teacher. It's obvious. It's completely obvious. Not just in religion. We all need one of them, you know. Of course you do. But of course, as Babonka Rinpoche says, choose your guru very carefully because you're going to end up like them. It's my favorite sentence from his entire book, you know. But it makes sense. It makes sense. You know, if you can read, you can so much read about Buddhism these days. So much, so many books have. But if you don't feel, my sense is, if you don't develop this connection with a human being looking like you, sounding like you, who is literally holding this knowledge in their mind, then it'll always be distant from you. You won't. It's the same as learning music on your own with a video. But you have one meeting with one musician. The difference is you can't even describe it. I think we know that. It's the human quality, you know. There's no question. That's the necessity. And that's the role that Lama took, certainly. Incredible, you know. That's what we need, one of them. We need a knowledge holder. And also in the most simple way, because we've got a human heart, you know. As Lama said, we're all dying for love. It's so true, I tell you. And I know in my life, the first person, I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't particularly looking for anyone to rely upon, to trust. But when I met Lama Yeshe, there's no question for me, he was the first person in my life whom I trusted, you know, not because I didn't distrust other people, but the first person I met whom I had the confidence. Somehow there was I didn't use those words then. Who knew my mind, and who wanted to support me. And that's the job of a Lama. They've got to have this, you know, this wish to know your mind and this wish to guide you. It's got to be a genuine kind of affection. And that's an incredible kind of love to have. Don't mystify it. Don't make it holy. Don't make it religious, you know. It's really heartfelt. And the fact that we talk about devotion, all these qualities, especially in religion, we can be very superstitious about it. But I mean, what do you think devotion is? Devotion is when you talk about being devoted to your children, devoted to your husband. That means your heart is open. When your heart is open, the knowledge comes flying in. Of course, our trouble is when we fall in love with somebody, our heart is open, but we fall in love with peanuts, you know, and then they end up abusing us because we're stupid. So you choose your Lama, choose a person carefully, having checked their qualities, checked their disciples, checked their peers, then you commit. And this is the most direct way. It's obvious. It's not mystical. It's obvious. That's the most direct way to receive the knowledge, whether it's cooking or Buddhism. You know, there's no question. When you have this relationship with somebody, you know, there's no doubt. It's just it's logical. We don't have to say it in medieval terms, you know. It's just logical, psychologically. I don't know. What do you think? Do you want to ask a question, people? Say something?
No question.
Yes, where are you? Hello.
I was wondering if you'd like to share when and how you met Yeshe.
Yeah, quickly. I can talk about it quickly. Yeah, I was at 31 in Australia, and I was brought up a Catholic, and then I gave that up when I was about 19, and sort of about 10 years I was kind of looking for a way to see the world. I was kind of a bit of a hippie, and then a bit of a radical lefty, and then a feminist. About 10 years of intensive political activity, looking for a way to see the world. And finally I wanted something spiritual again, and I did martial arts, and then I broke my foot. A kind man called Bill Bright ran over my foot, stopping in my tracks. I'm very grateful. And then I saw a poster saying Lama Yeshe, and that was it. And here I am, 46, 77 years later. So far, so good. That's all. So far, so good. What can I say? Any questions on Zoom? Anybody coming to say? Nothing? Nobody? Yes.
You said that Lama had been a woman in his.
His previous life, he was an abbot apparently, and he was recognized as a little boy. I know when that really makes us happy for some reason. That's why he joked, "You people think I'm female," he said, you know. I know, but he wasn't formally recognized. But these nuns all were so happy to discover him and took care of him and then sent him off to the monastery when he was about 6. Yeah. I don't know what her name was, but yeah. What else, people? What else, people? Something? Yes.
What was the first teaching Lama Yeshe shared with you?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
No idea. It was actually at the same this retreat I went to, and he came in the evening. Lama Zopa would give all the main teachings every day at this retreat. Then Lama Yeshe would come along in the evening and give a little talk. I don't remember that, but it would have been about the mind and how the mind works, and you know, and us.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just curious if it was.
I don't remember. Don't remember. But I know I liked him, and he hooked me. He got me. You know, I kept thinking, thank God this makes sense. I didn't understand Lama Zopa at all, because he talked about the mind. And that's the thing about the Buddhist teachings. I mean, it is a really incredible body of knowledge, tracking back to these amazing Indian yogis and scholars from 3,000 years ago, a vast body of knowledge about the nature of the universe. But the essence of it, of course, as we understand Buddhism, the essence of it is the mind. And that was what spoke to us modern people, and still does. You know, it still does. When you talk about the mind, about how the mind works and our suffering and the delusions, we recognize it immediately, you know. And that's that. I mean, all the lamas talk that way, but he had this particular skill, you know, of touching on the somehow. Yeah, he had that particular. He still has that. He had that skill. That's yeah. What can I say? I don't want to say anymore unless you have questions. I don't know what else to say. We can do our
Hear a
puja.
bit about the Guru Puja and why we're doing it.
The essence of the approach, especially, okay, there's different levels of teachings. The teachings that we all share with, say, the Theravadan path, all the teachings you would receive if you were in Burma or Thailand, all the teachings about karma and the mind and the Four Noble Truths and what suffering is and how to get rid of it. That's the teachings we share. All the Buddhist traditions in the entire world share those teachings. Then you've got the teachings that are unique to the Mahayana path, the Bodhisattva path, which come in Taiwan and China and Japan, and of course in Tibet. But then you've got the most esoteric or the most advanced teachings, if you like, and they're really only extant in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And that's known broadly speaking as, you know, they have these different yanas or vehicles. So there's the first vehicle, and then the Mahayana vehicle, and then you've got the Tantrayana vehicle, the more advanced level, the most, if you like, the most sophisticated teachings, both philosophically and psychologically. They're all linked to each other. That's why they talk about this Lam Rim, this very gradual course, or like a course, really. If you're going to study a course in physics, you begin at grade 1, you begin at simple levels of 1 + 1 is 2, you go to junior school, high school, university, and then postgraduate. Well, Tantra is postgraduate. But it's a continuity of knowledge, getting to ever more sophisticated, ever more subtle levels of understanding. So the essence of the approach. Okay, the job of being, that's one point. The second point is the essence of the job of being a Buddhist, if you're on the Mahayana path, the goal is to be a Buddha. The goal is to become a Buddha. That's the goal. That's the end. That's where you graduate on this path. You graduate as a Buddha. So if you want to become a Buddha, if you want to become a tennis player, as I always use ordinary examples, if you want to become a tennis player, you have to find a person who embodies tennis. So that's why, so you need, maybe it's not the person who invented tennis, so you've got Roger Federer. So you find the person who embodies tennis for you, and that would be Roger Federer. So you want to become your Roger Federer. So you in the same way, if you're practicing music, I had my mother who taught me Bach. Bach's dead, but she had the knowledge of Bach in her mind. And I wanted to become like that. So the essence of it is to have this Lama, this guru, this person this knowledge holder who is in front of you. So of course, in order to get the benefit, this is from the Vajrayana, the Tantrayana point of view, the essential way to get the benefit from that relationship, especially in this path to become a Buddha, is to see that person as a Buddha. Now, we don't know what a Buddha looks like, because if you finally achieve Buddhahood, you don't need a body. Your mind is subtle. Mind in its nature is unmanifest. If you're a Buddha, your mind pervades the universe. You have infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, and you don't need a body. So you can't possibly communicate with a Buddha. But out of compassion, that person who's become a Buddha manifests in bodies that will be of benefit to us. And so one body is the one we can see, that body, but they look like a human being. So Mr. Buddha back in India, he was known as Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. He was the guru. He was the guru showing you the way to be a Buddha. So he's the guru so our Lama is the guru of today, who's showing us how to be the Buddha. So then but you can't see what a Buddha looks like. He looks like a human being. He looks like a human being, you can't tell because we're not clairvoyant. So you have to have confidence in that person as being the Buddha for you. The Buddha, he's your Buddha. So Lama Yeshe for me, Lama Zopa, His Holiness Dalai Lama, my other Lamas, you practice seeing them as the Buddha. You practice thinking they are the Buddha. So that's a very powerful psychological attitude to have, because then you develop incredible confidence in that person, and everything they tell you, everything they say, the teachings they give you, you quickly internalize it and you quickly become a Buddha yourself. So these practices, especially in the Vajrayana, are practices of visualizing the Buddha in another type of form that isn't the human form, is a more subtle form. They call this the enjoyment body. This is in the Vajrayana. There's all these deities they talk about, these kind of like these images that represent different psychological qualities they're trying to cultivate. And that's very abstract for us. So we visualize in this particular practice, it's called offerings to the Guru. We're visualizing our Lama, our Guru, as in this particular aspect of the Buddha at a more subtle form. So then you're practicing seeing your Lama as the Buddha, and then this practice is various verses of the praises and prostrations and offerings and requests to that person, and that kind of creates qualities in us of opening up to that person, having respect for them, wanting to make offerings and requesting and making prayers and aspirations. So it helps us connect more strongly with our Lama as the Buddha, in order for us to become like them, a Buddha. I don't know if that helps, but that's the answer. Will that do?
Thank you. And then we have a question from Zoom. From
Yeah.
Of Lama Yeshe's books, which do you think is best as an introduction to his teachings?
There are some books published by Wisdom, but there are thousands of his teachings still available online from Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive that haven't yet been published as books, but they're there to be studied. And I would say any of those little books, any of those books of Lamas are really perfect introductory teachings, Perfect. There are thousands of his teachings available, Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. But certainly, if you want to know about a more for example, there's a book that's out recently called Mahamudra, which is very delicious, which is about this particular meditation practice on how to realize emptiness, but it's also about the nature of mind. So that's very encouraging. And even though it's a more sophisticated practice, it's very accessible to us. That's a really excellent book, Mahamudra. If you want to understand Tantra, Lama's book on Introduction to Tantra, edited by my dear friend sitting right there, John Landau. We worked on it together like 45 years ago. We're both still alive. We're both born the year of the monkey, John, but you're born in August and I'm born in December. So we're both 81 this year. We're still alive, John. He edited that book and I worked with him at Wisdom Publications. So that's another book I'd recommend.
And then another question.
Yes.
Can we practice the Lam Rim without a guru? If so, which Lam Rim book do you recommend?
You can read any of the books. You can read any of the teachings. You can read and watch videos about tennis without ever meeting a tennis player. Yes, but you won't get far. And I can't possibly say which one is best. You have to look for yourself. But I mean, there are marvelous books. It depends, you know. I mean, if there's so many of these teachings, so many of these books available, a really incredible body of knowledge. So I'd suggest if you look at wisdom publications, they've got many published. But it's up to you and the particular person that you like, the way of teaching it. You know, there are books by His Holiness, there's books by Lama Yeshe, by Lama Zopa, by other lamas who are presenting the Lam Rim, and of course you can study them and practice them without a teacher. Of course you can. That's why they're in books. They're available to you. Absolutely. But look at Wisdom Publications publishing list. You're going to find some really good ones there. That's it.